something to say.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this very special episode of Project Shadow, which I've been warning you about. We are going to be talking about the book. And if you don't know what book, you haven't been listening, we're going to be talking about Dreadnought by April Daniels today. And I guess I should introduce myself. Hello, my name is Charlie, and I'm a sci-fi fantasy writer. And
I'm Brian.
This is my hobby. For those of you who are long-term listeners to the show, you know that we used to do this together all the time, and then we bought a restaurant.
Yeah.
Working at one and owning one are very different things.
Takes a lot of time.
That would actually be a fun episode for us to do in future, is the difference between, working and owning. Because I don't think a lot of people understand that difference. And as far as like being a writer goes, that's a huge psychological difference from when you realize that I'm working on my book to I own a business that produces books.
Yeah.
That's a huge psychological difference. And I know a lot of our listeners are writers, and that might, my experience with a creative business and your experience with a creative business that has dirty things like overkeep and employees.
Yeah.
That could actually be a very interesting topic. So let me know if you're interested in that, because we might do that. Or it might just be completely self-indulgent tripe. I don't know. But it sounds interesting to me. But hey, that's just me. And I get all into this. Okay, so we are going to be talking today about the first book in the Nemesis series, and it is titled Dreadnought by April Ness. This is a book about a trans superhero who, gets her powers very early in the book and faces her first real trauma in the book. And I'm not going to say much more than that because I think almost anything else that I say is spoilery. So we haven't gotten to the spoiler warning yet. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
It's a very great read.
It's a very good book.
If you haven't read it yet, you should go read it. And if you don't mind spoilers, or if you've already read it and you want to hear spoilers, stay tuned.
Yeah, because this book, I think it's important for two things. So before we get into the spoiler section, number one, I'm really big about us being, about representation and finding positive representations of whatever you are in media and coming to, and sharing them. And as somebody who is kind of ticks almost every box on the LGBTQ line, like I tick quite a few boxes there. Basically, the L, I don't take that one, but I am biromantic. So
tears does not take the L.
No, yeah, tears don't work. But I am gay. I am homosexual. I am biromantic, and I am trans. So I tick quite a few of those boxes. Finding characters that really show us ourselves in fiction is very hard because not a lot of people write about us. And so that, I think, is one of the important things about this book, other than the fact that it's just really well written and very entertaining and so much fun to read. The second thing that makes this an important read right now is we are going to be getting our first trans media character, media superhero this year. They're going to put Dreamer on Supergirl. And I'm a little nervous about how that works, and I think if they were smart, they would hire April Daniels to either help co-write those episodes or at least come in and consult on them, because, oh my goodness, this book is so good. I kind of want Dreamer to be a lot like Danny
Yeah, and that was one of the other clever choices or happy accidents. I'm not sure if it was deliberate or not, but by with this first story, you have your more typical, the superhero. A person suddenly gets superhero powers, so they're trying to adjust and come to terms and grips with their new body, their new abilities, and so intertwined with that is also the transition and coming to terms with their new body and their new abilities, and also the public's interaction with a new superhero and with a new person, and so it was a very clever way because she was able to really show these these moments. Try not to give any spoilers yet. with through the book, which also helped somebody more as an outsider like myself. I haven't had to struggle with gender identity. I knew what gender I was. And so being able to
Not to
did
be
a
really PC, but
Yeah.
you accepted your assigned gender.
I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I accepted my assigned gender and was comfortable with that, and so there were certain experiences, certain challenges that I have not had and have not had to face. So without having to face them, I also lack an understanding, or in a lot of cases, even an awareness of certain challenges. And she did such a great job through the story to bring up some of the challenges and really show and through the character to kind of have those experiences and to have a better understanding of that.
Which is really important because we've been together for over 20 years. And he's been struggling with my originally kind of just gender queerness. And as over time, I've realized that I am much more transition-y than I originally thought. It's hard to convey those thoughts. And that's hard for me to admit as a writer, that there's an experience that's hard for me to put into words. This is an experience that's very hard to put into words. And one of the best things, before we get into spoilers, that for me came out of this is, I was able to have a talk with you and be like, okay, so that last chapter where Danny is kind of describing what dysphoria feels like, that's my head all the time. And I could see in your eyes, like, for the first time, you got it.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like you didn't believe me or anything like that before. It's hard to put words to. And
without having an experience to have to back up that understanding, I had nothing to relate that to or to have that under. I had no understanding. I was literally incapable of comprehending excuse me, what those words meant. And it was like, I understand all the words you're saying in the sentence individually, but together, and it was like, after reading through that chapter, it was like, oh, okay, now I've been able to kind of, because I was able to experience it through the character of Danny, it was like, oh, okay, I get it better now.
And so we actually went through the audiobook together. We do this a lot because sharing is caring, and, well, writing is always fun to experience in groups, and it's really hard to experience them in groups unless you do an audiobook thing, like what we do. We like to kind of have audiobooks on while we're doing lots of different stuff. The audiobook is narrated by Natasha I'm sorry, I'm going to slaughter your last name, Soudek, Soudek. I really apologize for mangling your last name. But Natasha does such a good job narrating the book. I really like how she modulated her voice and everything. And the great thing is, Natasha also reads the next book, Sovereign, which we're chomping at the bit to get into. So whether you're interested in the book or the audiobook, the story is phenomenal. I really enjoyed the audiobook as well. Okay, so having said that, if you haven't already read the book and you are averse to spoilers in any way, shape, or form, pause the podcast, go get your copy of Dreadnought, read it, love it, and then come back for the rest of our discussion. Because, oh my goodness, this was such a good book. So we're going to give a countdown from 5, and then any spoilers that you hear are entirely your fault. We are not at fault anymore. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Okay, so the book opens with Dani in crazy dysphoric majesty, trying to cope with her life, and her verbally abusive father. I didn't.
No, I got the impression physically abusive a little bit.
A little bit.
He's at least struck Dani in anger multiple times. But
she refers to him as Mount Volcano.
Yeah, Mount Volcano. That things will just set him off, and he'll get angry and explode.
And the scene that got me the most, because this is one of those things, as a person who has experienced some of Dani's problems. My father wasn't physically abusive. He did strike me from time to time and whatnot. But the thing that got me about the beginning of this book, there's this scene where Dani is behind the mall, painting her toenails because no one can see them.
Yep.
So it's the one part of her body she has sovereignty over. And it's the one part where she can kind of start dealing with her dysphoric feelings and feel a little feminine. And that, when I read that, when we went, I remember as a kid when I bought my first nail polish, doing exactly that, down by the creek behind Martin's in Frederick, Maryland, sitting on a tree bough over the creek, painting my toenails. I did that exact thing.
Yeah.
And that is probably one of the reasons why I connected both with Dani and this book so strongly. Is, I wasn't behind a mall. I was near a mall, because the Martin's in Frederick was right beside the Fredericktown Mall. But I was actually behind the grocery store, and there was kind of a creek that ran through there, and I was literally up in a tree over the creek painting my toenails. Because I didn't want anybody to know, but I wanted my nails to be colored. And I didn't understand why. You have to remember, this is late 80s that this is happening. So this is 87, 88, 89, somewhere in there, that this is happening for me. I had never heard the word trans used in anything other than transportation or transaction. This idea that somebody could be transsexual or transgender, none of those words had ever reached me. So I had no idea that, somebody who was assigned male at birth could be a woman. That idea had never gone through my head. And that connection that I had with Dani over that moment, it's almost indescribable, because, very rarely do you read a book and see a chunk of your life in it. And like I said, in earlier podcasts, the reason I fell in love with Cassandra Clare's books is very early in A City of Bones. There's a scene of them in a bar that reminded me of my friends at this goth bar Orpheus that I used to go to. And so I kind of clicked into the book very early on. this simple scene of Danny painting her toenails, like, had me.
Yeah. And Danny at this point, is all male clothes. I mean, his dad will not hear of anything other than that, or tolerate anything other than that. Track and field or football?
I thought it was football.
I thought it was football, but then my brain started to say track and field. But because dad wanted him to do manly sports, and had him, so he's.
Because I remember something about the team practice later in the book.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My head turned it into sports ball anyhow. So long running joke. You have to.
Everything is sports ball.
Everything is sports ball.
One of these days, maybe we can do the rules of sports ball on the show.
Yeah, it will become a thing if we share the rules though, because everyone will want to actually watch it.
Sports ball.
Yeah, but so you have this nice setup, establishment for Danny, and then of course the commotion, a big fight, and that's where you learn in the setting they're superheroes, and there's some superhero fight in the distance, and Danny's like, well, I hope people don't get hurt, because they usually ignore the civilians, but when superheroes fight, civilians can get killed very easily. And then Dreadnought comes crashing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to step back one step before Dreadnought hitting the ground. This kind of, the superheroes are fighting again.
Yeah.
You very rarely get to see a superhero world from a non-superhero's point of view. And if you do, it's for, like in this book, just those few moments before that character becomes a superhero. But I just love just the resignation of, the superheroes are fighting again.
Yeah, I hope too many people don't get killed. It's a good thing it's way over there. I don't have to run for cover.
Yeah, it's just this acceptance of, it's happening.
I just forgot the name of the show, but it really reminded me. I had a lot of scenes from that.
Oh yeah,
the
I know what you're talking about. The Bruce Wayne's Brothers Company, and I can't remember the name of that show either.
Yeah. Well, it reminded me a lot of that show. Actually, had a lot of scenes of that where they're like, "Oh crap, superheroes are fighting, people are going to get hurt." Okay, property damage, etc.
And so Dreadnought comes crashing down, and Dreadnought is apparently a legendary superhero that goes all the way back to the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember where they said the origin was, but I do believe he originated during the Second World War.
Yeah.
And gained his prestige from the epic battles he had with Mistress Malice, which I have to say, I love all of the superhero names in here. And we're probably going to get off plot in a little bit because of two of the characters we're going to start talking about. But Mistress Malice, I don't know why, but okay, for anybody who's like an old school X-Men fan, do you remember when Jean Grey first became the Dark Phoenix, and she decided to become this like dominatrix schoolmarm and went like crazy? I don't know why, but that was the image that came into my head every time Mistress Malice was mentioned. Like crazy dominatrix schoolmarm Jean Grey. Like, I don't know why, but that's where my mind went.
Well, on that, on the note of quite a few of the superhero and villain names, I actually sat back and was like, I kind of want to start a drag club and have, be like the Sovereign Drag Club or something, and actually have like different drag queens with the different names, because you could see a Mistress Malice and a Dreadnought, and
I think. Like, actually, I just kind of want to take some of the great icons of history, of LGBT history, and put them up on the wall and give them the names of some of these characters, because I know exactly who Dreadnought would be, and I want to know if you guys can guess. I'm not going to tell you, but I will say her name has a P in it. We'll see. Leave a comment. Call in. Do whatever. see if you can guess. Because, yeah, I know exactly who the historical Dreadnought would be. But yeah, so Dreadnought ends up crashing down and has a giant gaping wound in his chest and is clearly dying. And apologizes profusely to Danny. And then something that I hope gets more deeply explained in future books, passes the mantle of Dreadnought over to Danny. And Danny starts feeling the power rushing into her, and then in a moment that, because I am me, and I mean no disrespect to the writer or anybody else reading here, I mean, in my head, a full for the honor of Grayskull moment happens. Um, and then, She-Ra, like, in my head, lights and shiny things and all kinds of crazy stuff happens. And, oh wait, look, Danny is no longer a boy. Danny is a girl. And not only is Danny a girl, Danny is your stereotypical superhero. Tall, svelte, buxom, supermodel-esque. And I love Danny's first thought, how am I going to explain this to my parents?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? I have boobs now.
Yeah.
I can't hide these.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Jeans don't quite fit right, because, well, they were cut wrong. Or female waist and hips. Yeah.
And then we meet one of my, I'm just going to admit right now, you're going to hear me say this phrase way too much, and I admit to that already. Hello, my name is Charlie, and I have a problem. One of my favorite characters, Calamity.
Oh, yeah.
Enters the scene. And, oh, my goodness, Calamity is an old school gunslinger. So, just think of your Western motifs, just like put them all together, bandana over the face, the double barrel, the pistol in each hand. Always talks like an old-timey prospector, you know what I mean? Consarn it.
Yep.
Actually, I don't think she says consarn it at all,
No.
but I wish she had. Oh.
Yeah, I think that's one of the few things. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I could hear her saying it.
Oh yeah, consarn it. I don't know why I fell in love with Calamity instantly. I don't know what it was about her. I think it may have been her overly performative affectations to the Old West that won me over, which is weird because I'm not a big fan of Westerns. But there was just something about Calamity that immediately had me. And I like I said, you're going to hear me say this a lot. I really liked her. She's one of my favorite characters in the book, and I had quite a few of them. And so, yeah.
She was awesome, and it was a fun little touch because she explains how they need to get out of the area, or they're going to have to explain to the police why they're there with a dead Dreadnought and what happened, and so.
And you're not going to want to testify against a supervillain now, are you?
Yeah, which is, when you think about it, the supervillain that just killed Dreadnought, and no one's going to really want to testify against that.
Because Dreadnought is the Superman of this setting.
Yeah.
I think that's a very fair analogy. Like, he's kind of invulnerable. He's kind of the one who always saves the day. Dreadnought is the superhero in this setting. So think Superman, right?
Yeah.
Think the death of Superman arc, right? Everybody's in shock because Superman died. Yeah. How does that happen? What are we going to do now, right? And think about how fearful you are of whoever could have killed Superman, right? That's, I think, a good analogy to understand this moment. And so she and So Danny and
Calamity.
run off on their misadventures. And this is where we first start to get our explanation of how the world works. And I really kind of liked this, and this kind of brought me back to my City of Heroes days.
Yeah.
Which was a great game that I thoroughly enjoyed playing, where you have your white capes, who are, we are the good guys, we are here to save the day, who...
Heroes, we do heroic things, we don't kill, we only capture, yada, 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 yeah.
Who, in a wonderful kind of melange of both the Justice League and the Avengers, we're kind of hanging out with the West Coast Avengers, which, I don't know if you remember that comic, it was weird, but there actually was the West Coast Avengers, there was the regular Avengers, and then there was the West Coast Avengers, and we're hanging out with the West Coast Avengers up near Seattle, up in, no. Are we in the East Coast?
I thought we were on the East Coast.
Yeah, we're on the East Coast. So this is like the Ultra East Coast Avengers, but they kind of talk about how there are different groups around doing different kinds of superheroing. And I really like how we get so much information about how that there are these different groups and that they come together in alliances, and when big things happen, they kind of join forces to do stuff, and that we get a lot of information and detail there, because it really does help to flesh out a world that we don't get to see.
Yeah, because you have your gray capes and also your black capes, get introduced.
So your gray capes are your neutrals.
Yeah, they're not really taking a side. They don't, they're more like your defenders. If you want to.
Actually, the way I was thinking about it is that's one good way to think about it. My mind immediately went to old school Star Wars Galaxies, because that's where my mind always goes. So you have your people who are fighting for the Alliance, which are your white capes, the Empire, which are the black capes, and then you have the Independents, who are the gray capes, who work for whoever has the most money.
Yeah, your smugglers and spies and such, or your craftsmen that just they built stuff for both sides.
And Calamity is a gray cape.
Yep. Which is also funny because before you learn that she's a gray cape, the Danielle is brought in to the headquarters of the White Capes.
Well, no, so it's after she runs around with Calamity, she goes back to bed, she goes back to her house, sneaks into her room, goes to bed, hears tapping on the window.
Yeah.
And she looks out the window, and that's when Valkyria, yeah. And Carapace, I believe, are both out there, or was it Magma? It's either Carapace or Magma.
One of the two, yeah.
Was out there, and they basically do the whole, come here.
Yeah.
And take...
We need to talk, which, of course, is great, because, Danielle had a huge crush. Danny, sorry.
She's referred to as Danny.
Yeah, that's true. Danny, that's easier.
Yeah.
Because if I start saying Danielle, then I'm going to start sounding like Grey Witch. I have to slap myself.
Uh-huh.
Whew. Okay, deep breaths. They had a huge crush on Valkyria. And like posters on the wall.
Yeah, posters on the wall.
Danny's
like, I hope she didn't see the posters. I hope she didn't see the posters. I hope she didn't see the posters.
They were just outside her room. And it would be kind of funny.
I have to say, I absolutely love. And while I'm not a big fan of stealing, like the next time we get a new Robin, like if they decide to completely pick a Robin out of nowhere, I want the Robin, whatever gender they are, to have Batman posters all over their wall. And for some reason, Batman has to talk to them and taps on the window, and they're like petrified that they're going to see like Batman posters all over the wall. Like, that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so of course, they go back to the headquarters, and that's where you get some really fascinating things like you get to meet Doc.
Doc Impossible.
Doc Impossible.
Possibly one of I keep going back and forth on who's my absolute favorite character in this because I love Danny. I love Danny. I love Calamity.
Yeah.
I love Doc Impossible.
Yeah, you gotta love Doc Impossible. Another, it's more of your mad scientist, type.
Chain smoking.
You learn that not only are there superpowers, but there's also hypertech in the setting. So basically, your fantastical tech, it does things.
So, like, in this world, Batman would be someone who uses hypertech to achieve his advantages. Iron Man would use hypertech.
Yeah.
So, like, the difference between normal technology and superhero technology.
Yeah.
So, when you're thinking hypertech, think about this is something that Tony Stark would have come up with, or Reed Richards would have come up with, or...
Like, one of the pieces of hypertech we get introduced to is the super suits are self-healing.
Yes.
So you get that self-healing fabric,
Which is really cool.
Which we get to see in the latest Avengers, actually. But that would be hypertech versus a regular suit that might be nice.
That actually might be a better way to describe
up.
hypertech. Hypertech is anything that comes out of Wakanda.
Yeah.
Like Tony Stark kind of is at the fringe of making hypertech, but then there's everything from Wakanda.
He kind of goes back and forth, and then Wakanda is definitely
they
hypertech.
already have it.
Yeah.
Shuri has been there forever doing it. And she's like, "Oh, Tony, you're so cute.
Yeah.
Let me show you how that's really done."
Yeah.
I love Shuri.
But also there, you get one of those first moments where you get to see Danny struggle because you get to meet Grey Witch who challenges Danny over being Danny's gender, and in very offensive manner, but it's.
I'm going to be a little bit more overt with this. Grey Witch constantly dead names Danny.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and it was one of those first moments where you get to experience like what, why sometimes a person would really blow up over their name or the name being improperly used, and because you really get to feel Danny's pain as she's,
Grey Witch insists on calling Danny Daniel, and saying he.
Yeah, and saying he. And it's just like, wow. I mean, I'm gonna have to, after the scene was done, I was like, what a bitch.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. But it was like very informative as well, though, and it was really well done because, poor Danny's trying to adjust because, he just learned she just learned that she could fly, and I started saying he because it was like he became a she, but she was always a she.
She was always a she.
Yeah, sorry, this is where it was learning.
She was
always a she, but her body changed. There we go. Her body transitioned. Basically
instantly.
Earlier that day, instantly, and earlier that day.
And Doc Impossible actually goes into the actual physiology of what happened, and Danny is a girl now. Danny is not a biological woman, and I thought that this is something that kind of worried me about the story, is that Danny did not transition into a full biological woman with ovaries and a uterus and everything, because given the way the transition happened, I didn't know if she had fully transitioned like all the way over. But no, her body does produce estrogen on its own now, but she very clearly still has testes and still has male components.
They're just tucked.
Their legacy.
Yeah, their legacy. They're just tucked way, like in the lower abdomen or something. Mm-hmm. It's like way up in the body, and also so poor Danny just learned that she'll never be able to have kids. She is sterile, because she doesn't have a fully developed,
Which is something that all trans people have to take in mind. Like, that's one of the reasons why, like, for me, an HRT is a scary thing, because I kind of want to have kids someday. I don't know if I really care if they're biological kids enough, But after about 6 months on hormone replacement, you're never going to have biological kids.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think about a lot. And that's something that all of a sudden just kind of strikes Danny in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. But, congratulations, your transition is complete and done. And also, by the way, and it was like a neat way to kind of subtly sneak that bit of reality in through the character, because it was something I was completely unaware of, and as a byproduct of the process. I mean, I knew of hormone treatments and stuff, but I didn't know that, they cause a person to become sterile.
Yep.
And, so it was a very, that whole like scene or those moments was really fascinating because you get, not only more of the setting, but Danny's struggles, which was also right after Danny's struggles when she first got home and ran into her parents, and she walks in as almost a stranger, and her mom recognizing her was very touching, and then of course her dad taking a while before recognizing and accepting.
This is a bad joke.
Yeah, and by accepting, I don't mean accepting. I mean,
no, we do not. No, I don't even think tolerating.
Tolerating isn't even the right word.
Like they are begrudgingly.
He acknowledges
acknowledging,
or almost in his own mind. No, I don't really want to use that pronoun. He acknowledges she's Danny,
and that I'm gonna fix you, boy.
Yeah.
And starts using every gendered word, every wrongly gendered word that he possibly can for Danny. Like, he can't talk about Daniel without saying he or without saying boy. Like, these words start peppering his language so profoundly that, like, it's all right, my boy. We'll get through this, my boy. And rage. Anger and rage.
And also while Danny's learning and getting comfortable with her new body, she's also getting comfortable with her new superpowers. She learned she can fly, and it was kind of by accident. Kind of by accident, which is kind of funny.
And then very much on purpose.
Yeah, and then very much on purpose, and is learning how to manipulate the lattice a little bit.
That is one of the most interesting things that I hope we get a lot more about in Book 2, Sovereign, which is also out, and I highly recommend that you read it because we will shortly be doing a review episode like this on that book, because that's the next book that we're reading. I actually had other books planned, like we're going to take a break and come back to the series, and no. Next book is going to be Sovereign. Yeah. So definitely pick up these. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, the lattice is one of those things that I don't think it is what we think it is.
Yeah.
Because when we first get the first time we get a description of the lattice is during the transition scene when the mantle is passed. And so the first time I thought the lattice was referring to kind of seeing quantum reality, that this was akin to seeing strings of some sort that related to that kind of quantum reality that made up the world. And so, this is how flight is explained, is Danny grabs onto the lattice and kind of propels herself through it. And in the initial transition scene, we see the lattice being bent and shaped and molded as Danny is going from her boy body to her female body. And so that's what I was initially thinking. Now, I'm going to be kind of skipping ahead a little bit here because the enemy in the book, the arch villain in the book, is a character named Utopia, who we learn later in the book has some kind of a weapon that snaps the lattice, that breaks the lattice. And that is where I started wondering what the lattice actually is, because when Danny sees this, her instinctive reaction is to call it an anti-reality gun.
Yeah.
That whatever utopia is firing at people is literally breaking the fabric of reality. And so that made me start thinking about the lattice as, like, when you watch a documentary and they're trying to explain how the universe works, and they kind of show space-time as this kind of grid that bends and warps as they put like a planet in it, and you see it warp around the planet. And so I'm starting to wonder if the lattice is less quantum reality and more this kind of way, because Danny probably grew up watching similar kinds of documentaries, right? How her mind is seeing space-time, the actual nature of space-time.
Yeah. It may be.
Maybe?
Yeah. I mean, because it's the quote unquote fabric of reality, and she actually sees it as this lattice work, this fabric, almost a tapestry for everything. It is one of the interesting things that run throughout the book.
And with the Nemesis coming, I think we're going to learn a lot more about that. So the vast majority of the book, and I don't want to go into a full blow-by-blow of the book, because I really want you to read it. I want to talk about some of the things that I found really fascinating and hopefully give you enough tantalizing tidbits that you want to read it. The majority of the book is this wonderful, this is a terrible analogy because they weren't the best books, but kind of like, if you remember the old Green Lantern and Green Arrow go adventuring books, or the Captain America and the Falcon go adventuring books, I'm saying adventuring because they were kind of adventuring and kind of adventuring, and got to keep them kids in school now. They're weird books. They're really weird books. Like, literally, Captain America is a truant officer in one of the books. They're weird books. It's the 70s. They're trying, y'all, but they're weird books. But, most times when you see a team up, there's either a very direct leader-follower vibe that you get. So, like Team Arrow, right? On Arrow. Or even, any of the CW shows, right? It's Supergirl's show. Everybody else is just kind of there.
Yeah.
Right? Team Flash, it's Flash's show. Everybody else is kind of there. I mean, there's a very clear, no, Flash is definitely our hero, And the closest, as far as the TV show, is the old Batman and Robin, the 60s Batman and Robin, where Robin was not always his sidekick. They were kind of partners in, I don't want to say partners in crime, but partners in anti-crime. They went out adventuring, together. And so while, yes, there were some of those, well, Robin, you don't understand because you're just a child, things. Closer to that, you very rarely see this parody where Calamity knows more about the world because she's been caping for longer than Danny has. And I keep referring to Danny because Danny, one of the subplots throughout the story is if Danny is going to pick a new superhero name or keep the name Dreadnought. And so that's why I keep referring to Danny. But they're on such... But Calamity isn't the leader of the team. Danny kind of sees her that way.
Yeah.
And at one point in the story when Calamity is gravely injured, Danny has a moment of, how in the world am I going to do this without her? She's the one that knows everything.
Yeah.
But most of their actual adventures together are very much that buddy comedy, buddy cop kind of thing.
Well, it was a nice setup because you have the one who leads because of knowledge and experience, and the other one that leads because of just sheer brute, unkillability.
She has the power of Dreadnought and can destroy anything in her path.
Yeah, a machine gun can be unloaded into her, and she'll just be like, "That tickled." I got shot, didn't I? Yeah.
Oh, no. There was never a did I get shot. It was, you messed up my suit.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that I did enjoy about this is it felt
it.
like some of the older comics where the weapons would actually tear the super suits, but their bodies would be fine. And, there was this wonderful moment in one of the fights where Danny's just kind of looking down at the tatters of her super suit going, this is going to take quite some time to repair, and I still have things to do. And just kind of having this debate over whether or not to basically keep caping or wait for the super suit to repair itself, or maybe go get another one. No, I'll get in trouble if I get another one, because I'm technically not supposed to be caping right now. And I really like this weird little detail of realism that, yes, Danny, because of the power of Dreadnought within her, is virtually indestructible, though not entirely indestructible, as we find out in the course of the story.
Yeah.
But virtually indestructible, but nothing she's wearing and nothing around her is. And, it's often kind of bothered me when you see Superman getting shot with bullets and his suit's fine, because it should at least be scratched or dented or something, because then really is he impervious to bullets, or is the suit impervious to bullets?
Yeah.
It's Batman's impervious to bullets because the suit is impervious to bullets.
Yeah.
Except for in cases when it's not, because they need Batman to bleed. But he'd be shot 1,000 times except for that one Achilles bullet that makes him bleed because plot demands it.
Yeah.
Big Batman fan, that happens way too much. Way too much. But you know what I'm saying? That little layer of realism that, yes, she's impervious to everything, but the clothing, it is not.
Yeah.
I don't know why I enjoyed that so much, and I think it's one of the reasons why, it reminded me of, the Daredevil show, where, he can take a beating, but he's usually wearing rags by the end of a fight.
Yeah.
Because
his outfit couldn't take that hard of a beating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's why at least Hulk is shirtless. They don't even bother. He's already ripped through his shirt. He's destroyed it before anybody else has a chance. His shirt would not survive rocket launch attacks and automatic weaponry and buildings and cars and whatever else was thrown at it.
Don't get me started on the Hulk's pants, because I remember...
Well, most of his impacts are to his upper body.
No, I'm not talking about the impacts. I'm talking about when Hulk changes. I love how in modern media they love to show, the young, hairy version of Bruce Banner running around in Dudley's clothes. So you understand, no, he's actually wearing clothes that's 12 sizes too big. So when the change happens, the Hulk is still wearing clothes. I remember, because my friend Paul and I were so into the Incredible Hulk TV show when we were kids. And I'm just there's no way that Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno have the same waist size. And those pants weren't baggy on Bill Bixby.
I'm just going to say it. I always figured the cinching was part of his rage. It's what they do to bulls and rodeos,
That's true.
It's the start of the pure Hulk rage, and then it goes from there, because after being cinched, somebody's dumb enough to hit him.
Hulk don't like tucking. Tucking bad.
Especially that kind of tucking. Ow.
Wow, I will never see Hulk again. You just turned Hulk into a whopping big green drag queen from Straight Out of Oz.
Yeah, well, when drawn even, you see the clothes is really constrictive around the waist area.
Yep, you're right.
And it's all pretty much just all cinched up and crushed and
Hulk smashed flat. Hulk smash everything else.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's why. Okay, I didn't share this theory before, but while we're down this rat hole, this is why I figured. This is my explanation for part of why we start getting the quote unquote Grey Hulk in Avengers. He wears baggier clothes, so he's not so cinched up and just full of anger because he's personally crushed. So he's able to think a little bit more. and have conversations and moments of like, yes, I'm still the Hulk. I still can rage out, but I'm not pure rage because, blind rage because, the boys are a little more comfortable.
I missed having you on the show so much.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like,
Yeah.
that
Hulk's deep dark secret revealed.
Hulk's deep dark secret revealed. Yeah.
All he needs is a comfortable pair of stretchy pants, and he won't be blind rage Hulk.
I kind of...
The sun's low in the sky. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that just kind of broke me in such a good way. So, Utopia. Let's get back.
Who was it? Oh, yeah.
Utopia is an interesting villain, and while this is the spoilery part of the episode, I don't know how much I want to talk about because I have so many mixed feelings. I think the one thing that I do want to make sure that we discuss is this Nemesis thing that's coming towards Earth, because, well, the name of the series is Nemesis, and so whatever it is going to make a big part of the story. A little bit of it is what she uses to
power her unreality gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of creepy and makes me wonder about things. I actually rather enjoyed her mega villainy for one reason. I felt, unlike a lot of supervillains that you read, I think she had a good reason.
Yeah.
I can see how in her own mind she thought she was the hero of the story.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like, because she's very obsessed about Nemesis. So she calls Nemesis this rock that's going to come and bring about and shatter all of reality of Earth, basically, if this meteorite came too close and collided, and because it'd be like her gun but mass form. And so she's obsessed with stopping this, preventing this, saving the world, as she said. In her mind, she is a hero, and anybody who tries to interfere and won't understand that she's trying to save everybody is a villain, is in her way, and just has to be either stopped or brushed aside. Whatever. It doesn't. The ends justify the means. I don't
like to kill Danny.
Yeah. Or she says that
over and over
again. Because it's like oh, it makes sense. It was really cool to have that her motives and goals weren't just I'm pure evil and I'm doing evil things because fucking I'm evil, which oftentimes you get.
Yeah,
and
there goes our clean tag for this episode.
Oh, maybe they'll think it's cluck it. Evil people cluck, evil chicken.
Evil chicken.
And so it was just really nice. It was a nice touch. Like I agree with you. I think if you guys want us to go into more detail about the end bits, we might in a different episode. But I even those that wanted to get into the spoilers, I think that should be saved for a different.
Because the main thing that I want,
it was so many great twists and turns.
So many. But to me, I think one of the more interesting things is that by the end of the book, I felt like the villain wasn't defeated. And it's not because Utopia wasn't stopped, it's because Grey Witch didn't die.
Yeah. Yeah, Grey
Because
Witch
the thing that we
still
haven't talked about yet is in the middle of the book, as all this madness is going on around everything, Grey Witch goes to Danny and basically tells Danny, you're going to stop being Dreadnought. And if you don't, I will kill you, because you're not going to dishonor Dreadnought, because Dreadnought is not trans.
Yeah.
And then puts a spell on Danny so that when Danny tries to text people and tell them what Grey Witch said, her phone stops working.
Yeah.
And she's unable to actually tell anyone what Grey Witch said.
And as Grey Witch said, I'm a white cape. I'm part of the League of Superheroes. I can't remember the name of the league, but the League of Superheroes will call for, and is like, who are they going to believe, me or you? You're not even a member.
Yeah.
You're brand new to everybody. And on top of all that, that was just after Grey Witch went to Danny's parents
and
outed Danny
as a superhero. And I love that kind of play there because, well, Danny obviously is trans because, well, she left the house in a boy's body. She came home in a voluptuous, model-esque, statuesque female body.
Yeah.
That you can't hide that from your parents. But she has been hiding throughout the story that she's a superhero.
Yeah, because the parents just assumed that this was a byproduct of the fight that happened downtown.
Danny encourages that.
Yeah, between Utopia and Dreadnought, that like she got splashed by magic rays or something, and it just happened. And Danny is like, "Well, I'll encourage this misbelief
because I want to keep my secret identity."
Yeah, because once outed as Dreadnought, there's a lot of people that might come for her family, and Dreadnought has a lot of enemies.
And of course, her wonderful coming out at the very end of the story was really, really good, and I enjoyed that. But when she kind of does that whole "I am Iron Man" thing at the very end, and I really like that.
Yeah, but Grey Witch, Grey Witch just robbed her of that with her folks.
And the other thing that really annoyed me about this whole thing is Grey Witch survives Utopia's attack on the tower because she puts a protective bubble around herself, which saves her from what's going on. Couldn't she make that bubble bigger?
Yeah.
Like she's in a room with like 3 other members of the Legion.
With her Raven dead, I still thought it was selfish of her and questioned whether or not being able to make that bubble bigger. And I kind of justified it a little bit in my head that she couldn't have made it big enough, quick enough, because even her Raven dies. And so it was a matter of time, and she didn't have time to save anybody else. But then again, I also sat back and counter-argued that, which she's such a selfish B-word monster that that she just was saving her own butt, because she's more Gray Cape than she would.
I think she's a Black Cape. I think she's a secret Black Cape, and I think she's going to be a villain in a future book. And I mean a full-fledged villain, not just a turf.
Yeah, because after everyone else getting murdered, she's not going to deal well with that anyhow, and the rest of the council, or a chunk of the council, not making it.
Which, just to explain that to you, a TERF is a trans-exclusionary radical feminist, TERF, and that's very much the character that Grey Witch has. And I kind of just wrote her off as being a transphobe until we get to see the security footage where she very clearly only saves herself. And maybe it would have cost too much of her blood because we see that she has to cut herself to create the protective bubble around her that saves her. And maybe she would have died if she hadn't. But that is a key component to being a superhero in every version of a superhero, that you're willing to sacrifice yourself for others.
Yeah.
And I can't see what Grey Witch did as anything other than selfishness that allowed Valkyria to die. That allowed... Well, Magma is extremely hurt. Carapace died.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just my reaction to her, nasty turfdom or what, but I put the blame for their deaths much more on Grey Witch than on Utopia. Yeah, Utopia put the poison in the room and la da 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 da. Grey Witch had the power to save them.
Yeah.
Maybe in saving them, it would have cost her her own life, but that's what superhero do.
Yeah.
Like, that's how superhero do. That's what superheroes supposed to do.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just cowardice, but that seems like villainy to me. That really seems like villainy to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely sat weird. And that was the other thing I also thought of with the Raven may have had to die as part of the spell.
Maybe.
The protection spell. Or maybe she had to kill the Raven, like it was like a a second life token. You know, she would have died in the initial attack, but the Raven died in her place, so she could get an extra 5 seconds to get a spell off or something. You know,
Yeah, I don't.
we don't know the
but
details, and it's something that did sit not very well. You know, because I really, especially with her underhanded activities already. And,
once she threatened to kill Danny, like straight up murder her or her family.
yeah, or her family, and
Or possibly her family, and if that didn't change Danny's mind to just kill Danny. Like, she's straight
well,
up...
she was willing to betray all of their stuff they preach about just to out her.
Yes.
And it was even before that. And then the other threat was like, oh, yeah, that's just,
So, yeah.
another layer to the cake and icing.
From my point of view, like, the actual arch-villain of the story didn't get their comeuppance in this. Because Utopia bad.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Utopia bad. Utopia worked with the Nazis back in the day. Utopia very bad. I'm not saying like I'm on Utopia's side. I think Utopia's plan was foolish. I think it was misguided, and of course it was megalomaniacal.
Yeah.
And then when they're all in there, I will be the queen of them all. You know, like not quite that level of arc supervillainy, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you know, she was a bad dude. Like, I'm not.
But
saying...
as far as like, you know, she had her reasons, and as far as like just flat out evil actions, you know,
Grey Witch was flat out evil.
Yeah.
Like threatening to kill a teenager. Because Danny's, what, 15?
Yeah. Yeah. And trying to blame all of the, you know, to blame Danny for the potential feminine regression of all of society. You know, it's like, this is a 15-year-old, or probably not 15.
No, I think she was 15. I think it very expressly said she was 15.
Oh, okay. A new teenager, a new high schooler. I don't know how far.
I believe she was 15.
Okay. You know, it's like, man, that is...
I may be wrong about that, but
yeah.
I have a distinct memory of them saying that Danny was 15.
Yeah. I mean, clearly still a child. You know, not even old enough to be allowed to choose to be a superhero.
Because that was the whole thing, because she had 3 years...
Yeah, that's right.
Probationary membership before they let her... she could decide to be in the Legion or not.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but... And like I said, I don't know if it was her abject turfdom or what that colored that moment for me, but I really feel like Grey Witch is so much more responsible for the deaths of the other members of the Legion, because I really feel like Grey Witch could have stopped it.
Yeah.
I really feel like Grey Witch could have stopped it and chose not to.
Yeah.
Not like just out of fear, like, oh, I don't want to die, I'm just going to save me, but actively, for reasons we don't understand yet, went, oh, well, this gets them out of the way for me.
Yeah.
Like
it just... It, it almost left me with, like, wow, that role-playing group is going to have a very awkward after-session argument as to why the player didn't use their abilities to save the others, so the others have to roll new characters now. It's like, dang.
You're the worst dungeon healer ever.
Yeah.
What? I survived? Yes, and everybody, that party wiped. Party wiped.
You're the mage and healer. You're supposed to save everybody.
Oh, at least buff everybody, for goodness sakes.
Yeah. Why didn't you detect this earlier? Well, why didn't you? You know, yeah, I could see the argument.
If she had the power to do that bubble, couldn't she have blown out the side of the building?
Something,
or teleported them somewhere? Because isn't that in her powers? I don't know. But made a bubble big enough for all of them to be inside of it, at least for a little while.
Yeah.
It really gets my goat, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
That she, in my mind at least, let them die.
Yeah. Yeah, and even more so knowing, like, seeing some of the other things she does and then going, well, I don't know the limitations. I haven't seen her character sheet, so I don't know the limitations of the abilities and the costs for using them, but, you know, it just seemed, it did not seem very good at all.
And I'm sure there's some people listening to us right now that are laughing because the answers to these are in the next book. But that's why we haven't been letting ourselves read the next book, because I wanted to talk about this one before we started the next one. And we're kind of chomping at the bit to get into the next one because this was so good. This was so good. Yeah. And there's so many little things that we could go into because, like, the little dive bar where the Grey Capes hang out in, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And especially that scene where Danny's dad goes in there and almost gets mugged / killed, or at least beaten.
Beaten up by a bully. You know, in
the situation where he's like, I wasn't going to kill him. I mean, he's not going to say it, but I was going to kill him. Like, he's like, I'm sorry, there's a virtual epistemology thing there. Like,
yeah. But it was funny because it was like, okay, so you might not be a murderer, but you're still going to be a bully, you know, like, yeah, I understand this guy's ignorant and is going around asking ignorant, offensive things, and he's not a super, but still, dude, you don't need to go and just smash him up like that.
And I like the way that the setup for Utopia and the reveal of Utopia, because I was kind of on board with it before it happened, but not in a way of like, just get to the monkey.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like, I know you're about to find King Kong, you know? Because I've read so many of those books. Like, you know, one of my favorite vampire series of novels, the second book, one of the great reveals is that character that you're seeing in the shadows there is Vampire Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, literally Vampire Jesus. And it is so obvious so early on that as they're being all like spooky and mysterious, who's this vampire in the corner? And you're just like, it's Vampire Jesus.
Yeah.
Like,
I know the answer, guys.
I know the answer. Like,
it's obvious.
Dude, like, all of his friends are named Peter, Paul, and Lazarus.
Yeah, they keep calling him JC.
And they keep calling him JC. It's Vampire Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a surprise. It's Vampire Jesus.
It would have been less obvious if they called him Jesus, you know? Like,
yeah, like...
or something, you know?
Something. Josh.
Just
call him Josh.
Yeah, call him Josh.
Josh would actually be more appropriate because his name was Yeshua in the original language, which comes down to English is actually Joshua.
Yeah.
So
if they called him Josh...
If they called him Josh, that would have been kind of more misleading. Slightly more misleading. But, like, you know, I've read those books, and, you know, that's Angel Souls and Devil Hearts by Christopher Golden is the book I'm talking about there. And I'm sorry for the spoiler, but if you can't figure that out like 10 seconds into the book, that, oh, that's Vampire Jesus.
I think even Christopher Golden would slap you for not figuring that
out. Yeah, it is the most obvious reveal in the history of reveals in a book. And so it's like my go-to, like, no, it's spooky, it's mysterious. No, it's Vampire Jesus. Yeah. So that's why sometimes you'll hear me just randomly say, no, it's Vampire Jesus. That's why. And I still love the books. Like, Mask and Martyrs was a much better book. It's a book that comes after in the series. That's the Shadow Saga. Great series of vampire books. Definitely check those out. Yeah. That's a whole other topic. But, you know, I wanted to bring that up because it wasn't like, oh, that's Vampire Jesus. Like, I got to the point where I was like, oh, that's Mistress Malice.
Yeah. Like,
Utopia's Mistress Malice. How is Utopia Mistress Malice?
You start counting and you're going, wait a minute. What she said is, because it was like one little clue that really starts to make it obvious. But, but it was fun because it was like...
But then I started doubting myself because I'm like, how could she be?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, like...
That's when you realize, a lot of her body is replaced with hypertech. And that's
then
how...
Then, of course, you realize that her entire body has been replaced by hypertech.
Yeah.
And.
Yeah.
But, like, it wasn't so dude, that's Vampire Jesus. Just say it's Vampire Jesus. It wasn't that experience at all for me, but I liked the way we got there because not only did I figure out before we got there, Utopia's Mistress Malice. It was, but how? Like... I get that. Like, I see that that's where we're going. That's the reveal we're going to get. But how in the world is she... That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And having to work that out really helped as well. But I really did like how that played out in the story. And, you know, it felt so organic because it was like shortly before we get the reveal that Doc Impossible was created by Mistress Malice. That she was created by Utopia. That I was like, oh no. Because it was actually when it was in the flight when Calamity had been hurt and is flying back to the tower to get help. And Danny lands on the landing pad on the roof and the guns attack her. My first, like, that was that moment where, like, the scales fell from my eyes. And I was like, oh no, Doc Impossible was made by Utopia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just was crystal clear to me right there. And it was this wonderful tension in me because I love Doc Impossible so much that I was actively, like, I figured it out, but I was actively rooting to be proven wrong. And for me, it was that when we finally got the reveal, it was super tragic because I was hoping, like, no, but I love you. Don't.
So that part I hadn't quite. I mean, I knew Utopia was in the building and stuff, but I figured it was because Utopia was in the building that she had turned the defense systems and stuff on and against anybody trying to intrude. I hadn't the Doc Impossible connection hadn't quite clicked until the actual big reveal, and I was just like, oh crap. Well, that makes a lot of sense now.
And this, as somebody who's actually had nicotine gum, her going through the nicotine gum in the way that she did made no sense for a nicotine addict.
Okay. That
was the tell for me.
And so that
she's not human.
Yeah.
Like, I knew then she wasn't human because nicotine gum, if you've never had the misfortune of that horrid stuff in your mouth, and I'm not saying that because, like, smoking is bad, kids, like, nicotine gum is one of the most horrid things you will ever put in your mouth because it burns. It burns.
Ugh,
it burns. It's like, have you ever gotten, like, a peppercorn stuck in your jaw, like between the skin of your lips and, like, down in the crevice in your jaw, and it kind of burns.
Hot pepper sauces down there.
Yeah. That's what nicotine gum kind of feels like.
Ugh.
And basically, when it stops burning, you pop it out and you chew it a little bit more until it starts burning your tongue, and then you pack it back away. And that's how nicotine gum works.
Oh.
And yeah.
Wow, that is unpleasant.
Yes, it is.
Unfortunately, I didn't have to go through that phase.
Yeah, it is extremely unpleasant. And she, while she does kind of pack it away a little bit, she kind of chews nicotine gum in a similar way to I do the ice.
Yeah.
Where, it's lost its flavor, throw it away. It would still have been providing nicotine at that point. You just chew it a little bit more. She didn't need to be going through it as fast as she did.
Okay.
And that's when I realized that she's not actually getting anything from the nicotine.
See, that was a fun, subtle clue that I didn't pick up on because I was just like, I don't know, I didn't have that experience with, I didn't have to go use nicotine gum, and my only experience is regular bubble gum. So I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah, she's going through it like bubble gum.
Like bubble gum.
The problem is the way nicotine gum works, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That basically you've exposed the nicotine on the outside of it, you kind of let it soak in, then you kind of chew it a little bit to kind of reveal more of it and pack it back into the side into your jowl to absorb. There's no way she was getting nicotine out of it. It was not coping with an addiction.
Yeah. It was executing a program that, Yeah, that's a great clue.
And
it's a great subtle clue.
Yeah, it's like if you've never actually had to use nicotine gum, that probably never stood out for you.
Which is why it was over my head, and then I really didn't get it until the big reveal.
Yeah. Like that's when I realized that she wasn't human.
Yeah.
Because at first I thought she just chain smoked because of, it's kind of like the whole joke that the Flash can't get drunk because of his super metabolism and all that. At first that's what I thought it was, and then like the more we saw the nicotine gum, it didn't make sense to the way nicotine gum actually works. And that was a great hint for me. But I love Doc Impossible, and I'm pretty sure Doc Impossible will be back for the next book because of the way this one ended. Yeah. I love Calamity, and I hope Calamity creates the greatest, like, I want her to have a Barrett arm in the next book. Like, I want her to actually have the 6-shooter built in so that she can finger gun people to death, because I just want that to happen. Like, I want it to look like a normal gun, normal hand, and then she just goes, pow, you know, just the finger gun thing, and, like, bullets shoot out. I really want that to happen. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. For anybody who's already read the book, you know, I don't. These are some of the things that I want, because I just think that would be awesome. But, yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this book. And this is one of the few books that, in a long time, that I can very honestly say, this is a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, however many stars you want to talk about. This is 100 out of 100. This ticked all the boxes for me. Like, I loved the characters. I loved the world. I loved the story.
The reveals were well done. Yeah.
Like, usually,
as you could see, there were subtle clues that, you know, you could get or miss. and you know, great reveals that came about.
And for those of you who have seen our earlier reviews, listened to our earlier reviews, you know that, you know, I can be very nitpicky about things, because especially when reading a book, you know, my writer brain kicks in and points to stuff that I really wish had gone a different way. And like I said, the only thing that upsets me is that Grey Witch has not gotten her comeuppance, but there's at least 1 to 2 more books. You know, I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but there's at least 1 more book to go through, and maybe more after that. Her comeuppance will come.
Yeah.
Like, something will happen. And the fact that that's, like, my big gripe with the book, that's a good gripe to have. Like, I loved the language. I loved the way... And this book had a lot of stuff that traditionally I hate. It's written in first person. I don't like first person narratives. Generally speaking, like, that's usually a deal breaker for me. It's written in present tense. I hate books that are written in the present tense. And I'm actually coming around, because Chuck Wendig actually wrote some books in present tense that I enjoyed. And this one I enjoyed. So maybe I'm not as opposed to that as I used to be. Or maybe writers have finally found a way to make that work. Unlike how they used to, but that used to be a big deal breaker for me too. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that traditionally would have turned me off, but the writing and the story is so good and so compelling, I really don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, it pulled me through even these things that would normally and traditionally bar me from enjoying a story.
Yep.
And I really wish I could find a flaw with it, just because I feel like I should. You know what I'm saying? But no, this is great. It's a wonderful book. You should read it. Go read it if you haven't read it. And if you haven't read it and you've heard all the spoilers, well, the reveals are just as fun.
Okay, there's one flaw, and we'll leave on this controversial note. I secretly was shipping a relationship that probably never could have happened, but I was rooting for Danny to win over Valkyrie.
Oh, Valkyria. Yeah.
But that was my secret shipping there, because, you know, Valkyria.
See the age difference, because Valkyria is like thousands of years old.
Oh, you're being an ageist. What's 1,000 years between two star-crossed lovers? Yeah. Switch the words on. It'll get right eventually. Yeah. No, it was more of, you know, she's into guys, and, you know, Danny's into Valkyria.
All right, so it was a great book. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And hopefully we'll be doing more of these episodes together, because I really like the banter. If you like this episode, definitely share it with your friends. Sharing is caring. Remember that episode? We did that a couple episodes back. No, sharing really does help us out a lot. It helps spread the word that we exist. Also, if whatever podcast engine or service you're listening in allows you to rate, those ratings do help us find an audience. So please do that if you would for us. And if you have the time, care, or energy, in the show notes, no matter what service you're using, you will see a support on Anchor link. If you have the cash and are willing to do that, you can give at the $1, $5, or $10 levels. I don't get to set those, but those are defaults, and I have no say over it. But that money does go to help me making more podcasts. If you want to support both the podcast and my writing, you can hit me up over at Patreon. You can find links to all of these things over at projectshadow.com. And I'm forgetting to say something. Oh, if you want to share these on social media in a way that other people can see them, I have actually been posting videos of these up on YouTube, where I've just been like posting a still image with the sound on it. But you can find those to share on the Project Shadow. You'll see a link to my YouTube channel there, and you'll be able to find those and share those there. So I think that's everything. Is that everything? I feel like
And
I'm
remember,
forgetting.
have fun with it.
Yeah. And as always, I'll talk to you next time. Until then, have the fun. Yes, Sasha, have the fun. Sasha says goodbye. Bye-bye.